Welcome back to episode 2 of a bone-chilling paranormal ghost horror story that will definitely haunt your nightmares. Stay tuned. And if you haven't watched episode 1, I highly recommend you to go ahead and watch it first so you can understand how did this story begin exactly. But before we begin, as you're listening to episode 2, if you found it interesting, subscribe to the channel. Come on, what are you waiting for? As I genuinely promise you that I will do my best to make each story unique. Now let's begin this stir. 1, 2, 3, action. Sarah and Adam had stood in the dim light of dawn, the book with its crimson seal laying ominously on the table before them. The whispers had ceased, but the silence was far from comforting. It was a heavy, expectant quiet, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for their next move. And the couple knew they couldn't simply discard the book. Its power has intertwined with the very essence of the house, and perhaps even with their own fates. They needed to find a way to sever the connection, to rid themselves of the haunting presence that had invaded their lives. Adam, ever the pragmatist, suggested he seek the help of an expert, someone well-versed in ancient texts and the supernatural. So Sarah agreed, and they set out to find such a person, their journey taking them through the winding streets of Cairo, from dusty bookshops hidden in alleys to the grand libraries that housed the wisdom of ages. Their search led them to an old scholar, a man rumored to have knowledge of the crane that few others possessed. He lived in a part of the city where the modern bustle gave way to the timeless rhythm of traditional life. His home was a small apartment filled with books and artifacts. The air was thick with the scent of incense and old paper, so the scholar listened to their tale with a furrowed brow, his eyes occasionally flicking to the book that lay between them. When they finished, he was silent for a long moment before speaking in a voice that was soft yet carried the weight of authority. The book you possess isn't just a collection of spells and incantations, he began. It is a binding, a contract between the mortal world and the entities that dwell beyond. The scholar who owned your house, he meddled with forces he didn't understand, and in doing so, he tied his fate, and now yours, to those entities. So Sarah and Adam exchanged a worried glance. "What can we do?" Sarah asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "The binding must be undone," the old man replied. "But this is no simple task. It requires a ritual, one that will sever the ties that bind the book to this world. However, the entities will not let go easily. They have tasted the material realm and they hunger for more." He gave them instructions, a list of items they would need, and words they would have to speak. The ritual would have to be performed within the house at the stroke of midnight, when the veil between the two worlds was the thinnest. Armed with this knowledge, Sarah and Adam returned home. They gathered the required items: candles made of beeswax, chalk for drawing the protective circle, and an assortment of herbs and incense that the scholar assured them would protect their spirits during the ritual. And as midnight approached, they drew the circle in the library, placing the candles at its cardinal points and lighting them with trembling hands. The book lay open in the center of the circle, its pages fluttering as if caught in a breeze that didn't exist. They began the incantations, the words foreign and twisted on their tongues. The air grew colder as the shadows went deeper, and the whispers returned, now screams of anger and defiance that shook the very foundations of the house was what was happening. And despite all of this, Sarah and Adam continued, as their voices was rising above the cacophony. The book's page began to turn faster, a blur of motion that seemed to defy the laws of physics. And then, with a final ear-splitting shriek, the movement stopped, and the house fell silent once more. So the couple waited, not daring to breathe, until the candles flicked out one by one, leaving them in darkness. When they finally dared to turn on the lights, the book was gone, as if it had never existed. In the days that followed, the house was peaceful, the whispers were gone, and the chills in the place were replaced by the warm comfort of a home. Sarah and Adam had done it. They had freed themselves from the scholar's legacy, but as they settled back into their lives, They couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. They had touched a world beyond their understanding, and the echoes of that encounter would stay with them forever. The story of the House of the Whispers was over, but the tale of Sarah and Adam was just beginning. So in the aftermath of the ritual, Sarah and Adam experienced a profound sense of relief mixed with an undercurrent of unease. The oppressive atmosphere that had once permeated their home was lifted, replaced by a tranquil stillness that felt both comforting and unfamiliar. The days immediately following the ritual were marked by a cautious optimism. They moved through the house with a newfound freedom, no longer feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon them. The library, once a source of dread, now felt like any other room, though they couldn't bring themselves to use it as before. However, the experience had left an indelible mark on their psyches. They found themselves jumping at the slightest noise, a lingering reaction to the weeks of tension. And when it came to dreams, once a rare occurrence for both, now came frequently and vividly. They were not exactly nightmares, but the dreams were filled with symbols and imagery that echoed the occult nature of the book and the ritual. Sarah, in particular, felt a change within herself. She had always been sensitive to the moods of places and people, but now she found this sensitivity heightened. It was as if the ritual had opened a door within her mind, allowing her to perceive things she had been previously unaware of. And when it came to Adam, ever the rationalist, struggled to reconcile the supernatural events they had witnessed with his understanding of the world. He pored over scientific literature, searching for explanations that could make sense of what they had experienced. Yet deep down, he knew that something simply defied explanation. And as the time was passing, the couple began to notice small oddities that they couldn't explain. Objects would occasionally be found out of place, and sometimes they would catch a glimpse of something moving just out of the corner of their eye. These occurrences were infrequent and easily dismissed, but they served as a reminder that the house had secrets that might never be fully understood. Despite these lingering mysteries, Sarah and Adam's life had somehow returned back to normal. They resumed their daily routines, their careers, and their social lives. But the memory of the ritual remained with them, a shared experience that bound them together in ways they had never anticipated. The House of Whispers was quiet now, but it still held a story that was theirs alone. A tale of courage and the unbreakable bond of two people who faced the unknown together. And in the relentless nights following the ritual, Adam found himself caught in a vivid dream that was both mesmerizing and unsettling. He stood in the center of an ancient library, the walls lined with shelves that reached up into the darkness, filled with books that hummed with an otherworldly energy. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood and old parchment, and when he looked at the ceiling, exactly above him, there was a celestial map sprawled across the ceiling, and some weird-looking stars that were twinkling in a silent symphony. As he walked through the library, the books began to whisper, their voices, a tapestry of languages long forgotten. They called to him, each tome pleading to be opened, to share its secrets. Adam, driven by an insatiable curiosity, reached for a book bound in leather that seemed to pulse with a soft, golden light. The moment his fingers touched the cover, the library dissolved around him, and he was transported to the heart of an ancient Egyptian temple. Hieroglyphs adorned the walls, telling tales of gods and pharaohs, of magic wielded with the power to shape the very fabric of reality. And as Adam was in the middle of the dream, he understood the hieroglyphs as if they were his native tongue. They spoke of a ritual, one that could bridge the gap between the living and the dead, between the mortal and the divine. He felt an overwhelming sense of purpose, as if he was the key to unlocking a mystery that had been buried beneath the sands of time. But suddenly, the temple shook with the force of an unseen storm. The walls cracked, and sand poured in like the waves of a relentless tide. Adam was literally swept away, as the golden book was still clutched and tied in his hand, and he was pulled much deeper into the dream. Then he woke up with a start, the echoes of the whispers still ringing in his ears, and the sensation of the sand was still gritty between his fingers. The dream had felt more real than any he had ever experienced, leaving him with a profound sense of having touched something ancient and powerful. And as the days passed, the memory of the dream lingered, a constant reminder of the house's mysterious past and the ritual that had bound them to it. From my own humble opinion, I think the dream sequence of Adam was absolutely rich with imagery and symbolism to reflect the impact of the ritual and the house's history on his subconscious. It is a blend of his rational mind trying to make sense of the supernatural events and the deep-seated feeling that there is more to their story than meets the eye. And that was the end of the episode. If you guys enjoyed it, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications bell so you're always staying tuned with any of our upcoming scary stories. And if you have any suggestions or opinions, please leave all of them down below in the comment section, and I will look at each and every one of them and give you a feedback. See you again.